Did you know Britain has introduced Islamic blasphemy laws? You might have heard this week that a Koran was apparently slightly scuffed at a school in Wakefield and death threats were made against the kid who did it. And when the police investigated, instead of punishing the people who made the death threats, which is an actual crime, they punished the kid for slightly scuffing a book, which isn't a crime, unless it's a Koran, in which case it's illegal apparently. Blasphemy is now a crime in the UK. The full story is that some school kids in Yorkshire were playing Call of Duty and the loser, an autistic 14-year-old, had to bring a Koran into school as a forfeit. It apparently fell out of a bag in a corridor and was slightly scuffed, as you can see in the picture here, although it looks fine to me to be honest, and there was no damage inside the book, so you could still read it to find out all the important holy stuff like why you should strike down infidels, as well as the holy rules around selling your daughter as a slave, beating your wife and marrying children. Rumours went around the local community that the Koran had been kicked around and set on fire like a kidnapped aid worker in an ISIS cage. It hadn't, but people with beards were very angry. I should point out that the school kids have done nothing wrong in the eyes of the law. A book got slightly scuffed, but that's not a crime. Guardian readers will say, but it's a religious book, we must be sensitive. Really? If a drag queen wiped his sparkly anus on a Bible as part of a taxpayer-funded sex show for toddlers, the same people would applaud, saying, such a progressive message against patriarchal Christianity. Please take my money, Mr. Drag Queen. Anyway, the school suspended the boys for a week and the police got involved. The police! I mean, surely they'll deal with a mob of crazed adults sending death threats to an autistic child for allegedly scuffing a book. Death threats are definitely a crime. But no, the police investigated the children and recorded a non-crime hate incident against the 14-year-old. They were so worried about community tensions, i.e. a bunch of adults going crazy because of false rumours that a book was desecrated, that they punished the kid. This is like a woman getting beaten up by her husband because there are rumours going around his work that she's going to give him cabbage for dinner instead of steak. Then the police turn up and instead of arresting the husband for beating up his wife, they arrest the woman because of the rumour of cabbage. The evidence is there, the steak is in the fridge, and it's not a crime to serve cabbage for dinner anyway and doesn't excuse beating anyone up. But the police don't care. Even the idea of cabbage for dinner is so abhorrent to them that they must punish the woman. Look, I'm not good at analogies. And what are these non-crime hate incidents that the child was charged with? According to official literature, a non-crime hate incident is something the police use to record when someone has said or done something which the victim or anyone else sees as being motivated by hostility or prejudice based on race or a protected characteristic, even if it doesn't amount to a crime. Confused? The police certainly are. In reality, the death threats against the 14-year-old boy are an actual crime motivated by religious hatred. The boy is seen as an infidel and is seen as having transgressed against their religion. They should be treating the death threats as a hate crime because they actually are. But our police, like the rest of our public sector, are enthralled to woke social justice ideology that prioritises diversity and inclusion over everything else, especially common sense or the actual law. Non-crime hate incidents might sound like a wishy-washy slap in the wrist, but they stay on someone's record and will show up in background checks by employers. So this kid will go for a job in a few years, and because HR departments are now full of blue-haired social justice Puritans, he'll get knocked back from the job. This Orwellian labelling of someone as a wrong thinker is worse than actually charging him with a crime, because he can't challenge it in court. It's a smear on his name indefinitely. The modern version of the stocks and pillory lasts for a lifetime. And while the police dish out more and more of these non-crime hate incidents to police issues that aren't crimes, apparently 150,000 non-crime hate incidents have been issued by some estimates, the clear-up rates for real crimes are plummeting. Only 5% of assaults resulted in a charge last year, compared to 26% in 2015, with similar shocking declines in all crimes, as this chart shows. And why are the school punishing the boys by suspending them? They're prioritising the feelings of grown adults over the children they're supposed to be looking after. Well, it's obviously because the school's scared after what happened to a teacher at nearby Batley Grammar School who showed a picture of the Prophet Muhammad to his class during a lesson on press freedom and religious extremism. The teacher and his family had to go into hiding under police protection, and the school had to issue an unequivocal apology for showing the completely inappropriate cartoon. Completely inappropriate. I really can't think of a more appropriate picture to teach a lesson on press freedom and religious extremism. But hey, that's just me. But if I contact the police because something that I consider sacred is disrespected, so for example someone leaves a mean comment on Patrice O'Neill's comedy special or scuffs a page in the Delia Smith cookbook, the police would arrest me for wasting their time. Why is there this asymmetry where one set of feelings matters and another set doesn't? And what about the feelings of children? The 14-year-old autistic boy has been unable to eat or sleep since the incident, according to his mother. She appeared in the local mosque to beg for forgiveness and say she wouldn't be pressing charges over the death threats.
Firstly, thank you so much for letting me come here today to speak to you. I know that what my son has done is disrespectful. He didn't have any malicious intent, but he's a very, very silly 14-year-old boy who does have some challenges. He does suffer with high functioning autism. It means that socially he doesn't always realise what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. And on this, it's been completely disrespectful. He hasn't understood how sacred your book is. He actually, after the incident occurred, he realised he had offended a Muslim boy who was quite a good friend of his. He, off his own back, did send an apology to that boy and said that he realised that he'd been disrespectful. He told me immediately when I got home from work that night what he'd done. I told him he would need to face the consequences because what he had done was incredibly disrespectful. We sat down and we researched about the Koran. We learned obviously that it is a very, very sacred text, that you must wash your hands before you touch the Quran. It must be kept high. You can't just read from the Quran, as some of his friends have done. And he realised at that point how massive this was. He is utterly mortified. He's very, very apologetic. He's very remorseful. He hasn't eaten since Wednesday afternoon when this occurred because with his autism, it's put his anxiety to a level where he is beside himself. He's very, very sorry. He was quite happy to come here today and tell you how sorry he was. And he's asked me to say that it's not just me apologising for what he's done. He wants to apologise for what he's done to each and every one of you. We have had to call the police. He has received death threats. He has received threats that he will be beaten up if he goes back to school. He's absolutely petrified. But I don't want anybody to be prosecuted because of the stupidity of my son and his friends. So it was more about making sure that he's safe and just having those conversations so that people understand that he is a silly 14-year-old boy who's been very disrespectful, but assures me that he will never be that disrespectful ever again. Going forward, I will make sure that he does more research on Islam, so that he has a better understanding of other people's cultures and that he can be more respectful, and I will ensure that he does that. The
boy's mother there is wearing a headscarf out of respect for Muslim values and traditions as she enters their territory. Asking people to respect values and traditions as you enter their territory. What a novel concept. We're told that being woke is just about being aware of racial discrimination and trying to do our best to prevent it, but it creates a necessity to appear non-racist at all times that can have appalling consequences, such as when a security guard at the Manchester Arena didn't approach the bomber, Salman Abedi, over fears of looking racist if he did. He told the inquiry into the bombing that he had a bad feeling about the suicide bomber, but did not approach him for fear of being branded a racist. The bomber was a Libyan man dressed all in black, wearing a large rucksack, who according to witnesses was fidgety and sweating, so not the typical audience for an Ariana Grande concert. But in a world where racism is the worst crime imaginable and diversity is the golden rule, where social workers who brought the issue of grooming gangs to the attention of police were sent on diversity training or fired, Who can blame him? Anyway, don't expect it to get better anytime soon. Islam is projected to be the biggest religion in the UK by 2050. Some people would say it's already the biggest true religion, as Christianity seems to be intent on becoming a trendy LGBTQIA++ campaign group rather than an actual religion. Ironically, the only challenge to Islam's dominance seems to come from the religion of social justice that's captured our police and institutions. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please commit a non-crime hate incident by sharing it with a friend, but please do not scuff my YouTube channel. It is very sacred. For exclusive content, sign up to my Patreon. From £3 a month, you get access to private Clown World videos and a Patreon-only podcast. There's a link below. Thanks for listening. I'll be Luke Bye. Bye-bye.